everybody. So today I wanted to talk about like the double-minded condition and how that can affect an international student. And specifically, I'm going to talk about the difference between American culture and Japanese culture, that is collectivism and individualism. So when you are in a different country, it's really easy to, it can easily lead to the double-minded condition. And you're faced with many different customs, languages, traditions, social norms. And there are especially many differences that I've noticed between American and Japanese culture. And it takes time to adjust to these new customs. And sometimes there might be this feeling of frustration whenever you are faced with the two different cultures. And like I said, collectivism and individualism, they're one of the biggest factors that I've noticed when it comes to, like, one of the biggest factors that can foster a double-minded condition that I've noticed. And so I'm just going to explain those two. So first, individualism. That is a prevalent trait of American culture. When everybody thinks of America, most of the time, like, the first word that might come to your head is freedom. And I think that individualism best represents that word freedom. And individualism, it places emphasis on individual freedom and personal achievement. And it's a deep-rooted idea where everybody is able to make their own choices, and then your own success kind of depends on your own efforts. And that's something called the American dream. It's a belief where success is achieved through your personal efforts. And this stems from like the US Constitution, and which pretty much protects like the freedom of speech, religion, etc. And this gives rise to people starting businesses and everything, and building up the businesses through their own efforts. And that also gives rise to a lot of competitiveness within the workforce. And aside from those liberties and the workforce, Americans can also express individuality through identity, self-expression, and that can mean like fashion, art, personal beliefs, and things such as that. And in contrast to individualism, there's Japan's collectivism. And that pretty much places a strong emphasis on harmony and cooperation, and Eric mentioned this before as well. And pretty much prioritizes the well-being of the group rather than personal desires. And this means that everybody is more likely to conform to the societal norms and expectations, leaving very little room for individualism. In order to maintain this collectivism, many people will they will kind of suppress their own opinions so that they can, like, in a way to satisfy others, or just say their opinion in a way to satisfy others instead of saying what they truly mean. And in terms of workforce, in contrast to American work culture, there's a lot of like work goals rather than like based on individual accomplishments, and that can also lead to dedication to the company, even over dedication. And so overwork is it's a very common trait in Japanese work culture. There's this word karoshi, and it means death from overwork. Aside from that, there's uniformity when it comes to fashion as well, and how everybody presents themselves. And it's harder to express your individuality through your fashion, and there's like an immense pressure of those around you to kind of dress the same. And I think that when you think about individualism and collectivism, it's clear that there's like the double-minded condition within both of those. Like in America, it's a place of freedom, yet there's the irony in the term. There's instances where freedom is limited, such as slavery, systemic discrimination, and etc. And this can lead people to think, how come America is the land of the free, yet freedom is always often challenged? And then as for collectivism, it's the ideal of unity, yet there's challenges that kind of arise from that ideal. Individual liberties, freedom, and diversity are limited. And although unity promotes equality, it can sometimes do the opposite. And there's like the importance of hierarchy, which can lead to power imbalances, and then people will want to conform to those around them, and so they limit their own personal opinions and then withhold their own opinions, which, like, those opinions could help the group, but because you're withholding it, you never know if it could help the group. And then not being rewarded for your individual efforts can kind of make you lose motivation, and then that could in turn also hurt the community more than help it. And as for my personal experiences as an American in Japan, I do find it hard sometimes to express myself, because I believe that Americans, or just Westerners in general, are better about expressing what they think and what they feel to other people, even if it's in a straightforward manner. And this is in contrast to Japan, where people tend to withhold their personal opinions and say something that they may not truly mean. There's a word for that in Japanese, takemae. And being in Japan and feeling the societal pressures, it makes me hesitant sometimes to share my own opinions as well, because I don't know if I'm coming off as too strong to my Japanese friends, because maybe they're not used to it if I say too much. And this can also cause the double-minded condition of withholding both American and Japanese culture. Aside from opinions, there can also be the physical aspect. So as somebody who has tattoos, piercings, I feel like I stand out a lot in Japan, and even if in reality people are not necessarily staring at me, sometimes I feel like everybody's staring at me just because I have tattoos and piercings. And it's very different, like the way that I dress and the way that I hold myself in Japan is very different from how I do in America, because I feel like it's easy to be shameless in America because there's so many people with tattoos and piercings and such. But in Japan, one, not a lot of people have tattoos and piercings, and two, it's frowned upon in Japanese culture. And then another thing aside from that is I actually used to dye my hair different colors before coming to Japan, like red, green, blue, purple, pink, etc. But then because I got nervous, because I kind of had this idea of Japan before coming that everybody had black hair, and so I got nervous about that and decided to dye my hair black before coming in order to kind of avoid stares and criticism. And to be honest, when I came here, I was quite shocked because I did see a lot more people with dyed hair than I expected. And I think especially in college, a lot of students leave high school and then they have this new freedom, and so they want to express themselves and dress up and dye their hair. And so that was something that shocked me whenever I came here. And again, this comes to show the effect of the double-minded condition. Sorry. Because I held some ideas of how tattoos and piercings and such would be perceived when I was in America. Like before coming to Japan, I had an idea of how I would be perceived, and then kind of struggled on how I wanted to present myself to others. And it led me to kind of compromise between the two cultures. And not only did I feel double-minded condition when I was in Japan, but also whenever I came back to America. I studied abroad last semester here already, and then during the summer, I decided to go back home to America and to spend time with friends and family. And whenever I came back, I was also faced with culture shock. It kind of like led to feelings of frustration as well. I kind of had to adjust once again to American culture, because in a way I kind of started accepting and holding these newly learned and accepted customs from Japan, and having this new mind kind of shifted perspective. It was shocking because what was shocking for me before kind of became normal to me, and I adapted over time. So once I got back to America, I felt frustrated in some ways because of that, and once again had to learn to adjust and learn how to express myself again. And there were also certain habits that I started adopting, such as slight bow of the head and speaking slower in English so that my Japanese friends couldn't understand. So sometimes in America, I would speak slow and I would forget some English words or something. That would happen occasionally. And then there would be some phrases that I would say in Japanese, but I couldn't say that in America because people don't understand Japanese, like my friends and my family and such. But it was a little harder to express what I wanted to say, and kind of frustration of having to relearn how to better express myself to others. And I believe that the double-minded condition is a feeling that's often felt by foreigners, and cultural adaptation is complex, and the feeling of double-minded condition can grow with the increase of globalization around the world. And I think that it's important to accept and appreciate the duality of being a foreigner, holding your own culture as well as the culture of the new country that you were in. And there are struggles when faced with a new culture, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can shape a person's identity, and then in turn could start to shape like the society as well. And with the growing prevalence of globalization and introduction of Western ideas in Japan, I think that there can be an increasing change in perspectives as well as the shift of the country and the culture as a whole. Thank you.
If you can, please speak with each other. Speak with your partner about this presentation.
I hear that curious were karoshi in your lecture, and you feel that a kind of the tendency of the unity with the other person is the main force to make some Japanese workers to get to the karoshi.
I think that because, for example, at the end of the day, maybe your coworker is staying late as well. So then you feel like, oh, maybe I have to stay late as well. And so you stay and you have to work hard because everybody's working hard. Because if you stop working hard, then that will make everybody's job harder. So then that leads to this like regularity of people wanting to work overtime, and then it can be very unhealthy. Work very long hours.
The tendency of the regulation or collectivism. Yes, thank you very much. Do you have any opinion or question for her? Ask some questions. Some questions? Sorry. Okay, questions, opinions, questions, comments? Please raise your hand. No? Raise your hand. Say something. No? Any questions? She mentioning that some kind of the karoshi, for example. Karoshi is a very curious word in Japan, but the tendency of the collectivism or some kind of the regulation is a very strong force in the Japanese mind. So in many cases, sometimes they have to work as well as the other person in the company. So it's a very sad thing in Japan. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.